Thank you so much. It just got so dark as I was just about to start. This really dark clouds just rolled in. So hope the light will be okay. Oh, I'm so happy to see you. I feel like it's been such a long time since I've done a live session, but I guess it hasn't been that long. Actually, it kind of has been a little while. I think it was since the spring equinox, which was in March. So it just feels like it's been a long time. Eugene. Oh, thank you all so much. I'm really happy to be with you today, and I've been looking forward to this. And this theme is just such a I'm not even quite sure what to say really about this theme. It's a big one, and it's very relevant for all of us. So I'm really looking forward to exploring this. And with any subject as massive as this, obviously we'll only be able to just like skim the surface and plant some seeds. We could probably do every live session for eternity on letting go, but today will just be a little drop in the ocean. And I'm really grateful to have this time together. So welcome all of you. And I'm going to begin with my invocation before I dive into the theme. So as you know, the invocation is just a way of calling us all together here to be in the present moment. And it's an opportunity to really just become present here and give yourself this time. If you've never been to one of my live sessions before, usually they're about 90 minutes. So stay as long as you can. And if you can give yourself that time, if you enjoy it, then stay so that we can go deeper into it. I think that it's really important to just take time with these things. Everything is so instantaneous in our world today, but with the subject as massive as this, it's like we need more than just a couple of minutes to really go into it. So. All right. So I'm going to begin with the invocation. And wherever you may be, just take this time for yourself to just become really present here. You don't need to do anything special. You don't need to sit a special way unless you want to. Just be comfortable, be relaxed, and come into your heart and allow the theme of this subject of this session to just be present with you, whatever it may mean to you right now. You can bring it here, bring it present in your awareness. I'll put this down when I talk. It's just when I sing, if it's too low, then I have to like scrunch over. If you want, you can chant the sound of Om with me 3 times. And when you chant that sound, just feel it in every cell of your body, as if your whole body is reverberating with that sound. Which it is, we're just not always aware of it.
Dhyayamodvalavaguntanavati Tejomahinashtiki Snigdha Bangavidakinim Bhagavati Mandasmita Srimaki Vatsalyamritavarshinim Sumaturam Sankirtanalapinim Shyamangim Madhusita Sutim Amritanandatmika Ishwari Om Amriteshwari Namaha Om Amriteshwari Namaha Om Amriteshwari Namaha Ananta samsara samudratara Nakaitaviyam Guru Bhakti Davyam Vairagya Samjata Pujanapiyam Namo Namo Shri Guru Padukapyam Namo Namo Shri Guru Padukapyam Namo Namo Shri Guru Padukapyam Namo 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 Namo
Let's just take a moment to become really present here. Return back to our home of this island of self, as Thich Nhat Hanh says. Just gather all the pieces of yourself that you may have scattered around and just bring them back here to this moment. You can breathe naturally and just notice on the exhalation that this is a kind of letting go. No effort required. And just let go when you exhale. May this time we have together bring each one of us here whatever we need in this moment. May we all be receptive to receive whatever medicine we are each needing at this time. And may our time together be of benefit to the whole world somehow in a way we don't understand. But may all the positive vibrations and love that we are generating together move out into the world and bless everybody. Thank you. So the reason that I originally decided to do this subject is because Ellen and one of the admins in my circle here on Insight Timer posted something in the circle. It was the passage from Thich Nhat Hanh that I'll read to you in a little bit. And it really struck me. And I was really appreciative of people's reflections about it. And I just got the feeling that this would be a really good subject to explore. And it's such a relevant theme for me personally right now. And it has been for a while. Just lots of different kinds of letting go has been required, especially in this past year. And so it's a theme that I'm working with personally. And it's really interesting because many people actually sent me messages saying, thank you for doing this session with this particular theme. It's really present for me right now. Or it's just really relevant for me right now. And I was thinking about all of the different ways that this idea of letting go, or this theme of letting go, comes up in our lives. Sometimes we're working through loss and grief, and we're letting go of a loved one, maybe somebody who's passed on, or a relationship that is no more. In life, we go through many different, phases and cycles. And of course, we lose people because this is an impermanent world. But sometimes we also lose friends that we've had in our lives, or we lose colleagues, or we lose partners and lovers. There's loss that comes with being alive, and letting go is a big part of what comes with the territory of that. And from the moment we're born, we are aging, and aging also is a kind of letting go, and throughout our lives, we're asked to let go in so many different ways, not only just of relationships or things that we're moving through that are losses that can be very difficult sometimes to move through, but we lose our identity, the parts of ourselves that we maybe thought would be there forever. They change, we change, as we go through different experiences in our lives. The person that maybe we were at whatever age, some of those elements of that person may not be there anymore, or we've had to let go of certain aspects of ourselves. Or if you've ever experienced health issues, which I have, there's a letting go of a certain way of being in the body that was there once that maybe has changed, and it's a new way of relating. There's a letting go that has to happen. There can be a letting go that happens in our work life when we are letting go of something that we once did that no longer resonates anymore, that we can't do anymore. We're moving into something different. There's letting go that happens with our consciousness, parts of ourselves that we want to let go of, maybe perfectionism or expectations, or, feeling certain things that are burdening us, like shame or guilt or resentment, that are kind of feel like splinters in our heart. Often we want to let go of these things, and it's difficult to let go of them. And so these are all just different ideas, of the way that letting go can show up in our lives. It has so many different manifestations. And I've just been thinking about it because usually when I do a live session, as soon as I set it up on that, it's like I'm just living and breathing that theme, and I just sit with it so deeply, because I want to really like ferment in that subject, so that when we come together, I can offer you whatever it is that is there. And so I've just been thinking about this. And this morning I was getting ready for the live session. I was singing a little bit. I just had this, I wrote in the circle, I just had this so much emotion just come through. And it was just almost this feeling of overwhelm. Today is actually my friend Erica's birthday. As some of you know, my very dearest friend is getting ready to leave this world. And she's sick with a brain tumor. And so it's been really difficult. And that's been just one of many pieces in my life of needing to let go over and over again. But I was just feeling that. And then I was also just feeling just the burdens that all of us, so many of us, carry in this life, that it's almost like we're kind of lugging behind us this invisible sack of heavy rocks from our past, things that have happened, people who have hurt us, experiences that feel like we can't let go of. If you think about that and you just kind of look out at the landscape of your life and you see like what are some of those rocks that you're carrying in that sack, it's just an interesting thing to tune into. I think sometimes maybe we're not aware of it because we don't focus on it because we're distracting ourselves or we're busy. But when you really sit and feel into things, you can realize, wow, there's a lot. There's a lot that I'm carrying from a very long time. And why is it so hard to put it down? Why is it so hard to let it go? Why is it difficult to drop that, whatever it is? And sometimes it can take so much attention and love and time and work, so to speak, to really let go of certain things that are really heavy on our heart that we've been carrying around. And so this morning, as I was singing, I was just feeling that, not just for myself, but just for all of humanity, feeling like, wow, we're all carrying so much, and with this pandemic and all of the things that are going on in the world, it's just been the ultimate massive letting go, of a way of life and a way of being in this world that probably won't ever go back to what it was before. Doesn't mean it's not going to turn into and evolve into something that is actually healthier in the long run. But there's been so much letting go that's had to happen. And so I just feel like this theme is very relevant globally, collectively for all of us. And I was feeling this morning in myself, like the pain of not being able to let go of certain things, and also a feeling of like a freedom that comes with letting go simultaneously. I've experienced both things. I'm sure many of us have. So anyway, I'm coming to you just with all of this in my heart and what I've been working through in my life just this past year in particular. Just my family, they sold my childhood home, which was such a special place to me, which was a big letting go. And then I lost my friend Charlie, as many of you know, in a bicycle accident. And my other friend got so many just different things of kinds of letting go and necessary externally, and then internally, just the loss, just different people in my life, people close to me who moved away or who fell away, things within myself that I've been letting go of and working through, patterns, all of that stuff. So it's all just right here with you, with whatever is in you. So as I was thinking about, thank you. So as I was thinking about this theme, I was reflecting on the world's spiritual traditions. And yesterday, and I was doing a meditation in the circle, and somebody asked, about the difference between surrender and letting go. And obviously could have a whole conversation about that. But I started thinking about all of these different like fundamental truths in different spiritual traditions. It really feels like in so many ways, it's just another way of saying letting go. And just think about this for a minute. Forgiveness, acceptance, allowing, trust, non-resistance, giving up the ego, non-attachment, renunciation. All of these things are like a kind of letting go. If you really start to look deeply into it, it almost feels like all of the different spiritual traditions and teachers of the world have basically been showing us different ways to let go. When you're in the present moment, you are letting go. That when you're surrendering, you're letting go. When you're allowing everything to be as it is, there's a letting go. When you forgive, you're letting go, right? So just like meditating on that, I find it completely fascinating. And I was just thinking about some of the texts like the Bhagavad Gita and Tao Te Ching and all of these different, spiritual scriptures, and how they're really saying so much of the same thing in different ways. And we human beings are so good at clinging on to things that, we need all of these different texts and teachers to kind of help remind us in many different ways, let go, let go, let go, and it's not easy to do. So the question is why? Why isn't it easy to let go? Why do we have these heavy sacks with these rocks that we're lugging behind us, and we feel heavy, we feel burdened, from it? And yeah, we want to let it go, but somehow we can't. Maybe, there's lots of different metaphors about this kind of thing. One of them is like there's a little parable of like an elephant. When an elephant is young, they have to chain its leg to like a tree or to something so it won't run away. But then at a certain point, when the elephant is old enough, they can take off the chain, but the elephant still stays there because it thinks it's chained, even though it's not. We're so much like that. It's like we can just drop it, we can let it go, but yet we feel like we can't. Looking ever think about, how do I let this go? Really, we're free. We don't feel that we're free for so many different reasons. We'll talk about a little of that today. So there's a quote from Ajahn Chah I wrote down. He says, if you let go a little, you will have a little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. So I think we all want peace. So why is it that there's so much tension and difficulty and challenge when it comes to actually letting things go? Well, I'm going to start by reading you this quote that I mentioned that Ellen posted in the circle. Thank you, Ellen. And let's start here. Many people have the desire to let go, but they're not able to do so because they don't yet have enough insight. They haven't seen other alternatives, other doorways to peace and happiness. Fear is an element that prevents us from letting go. We're fearful that if we let go, we'll have nothing else to cling to. Letting go is a practice. It's an art. One day, when you're strong enough and determined enough, you'll let go of the afflictions that make you suffer. There's just so much in that. Every sentence has so much in this that we could look into and just have our minds blown by, because there's just so much in here. But where I thought I would start is, he says, fear is an element that prevents us from letting go. We're fearful that if we let go, we'll have nothing else to cling to. So, obviously, our human mind does what any mind is supposed to do. It clings onto things, it grabs onto them, or it pushes things away, right? We have likes and dislikes. We have things we get attached to and things that we have aversion to. And our mind is constantly in a dance between these two things. No, I don't want that. Make it go away. I hate this experience. I don't want this thing. Or maybe this, I want to have it forever and I can't let it go. I'm not going to let it go, right? Our mind is constantly doing that. There's no point getting mad at our mind about that, because that's just the nature of our mind. It's just the nature of our mind is like a shifty situation. And the reason our mind, from my experience anyway, is trying so hard to do these things is because it really wants to confirm its identity. We're so invested in, I am not this separate person. I am this ego, I am this self, and I have to do everything I can to continually try to confirm that, And so when we cling on to something, we identify with it. There's a part of us that identifies with whatever it may be. And to let go of that means to let go of some part of our identity. And that is very uncomfortable. That's very uncomfortable. And if you can think about all of the different things that you might be identified with, that you may be clinging on to, it could be anything. It could be a person, it could be a position, it could be, status, it could be your wealth, it could be your career, it could be your spiritual orientation, whatever it is. We have these things, and then we kind of grab onto it and we make this little resume for ourselves. And we're like, okay, this is me, I'm here. And I know this is me, so I can kind of be solid about it. But life isn't really that solid, So eventually we're asked to kind of let things go or look into things and question, what is our relationship with this thing or whatever it may be. And in many of the spiritual traditions of the world, essentially the teachings say that the main problem is that we think our happiness is coming from outside things. We think that I think I'm happy because this person makes me happy, or because I have this job, or because I sing, or because I live in this house, or whatever it is. I associate my happiness with those things. I also associate my unhappiness with those things. So if we attribute our happiness to things outside, that the things that we're attached to, we don't want to let go of them because we think we need those things to be happy. In Sanskrit, this might be called avidya, which means ignorance. It's like the seed of ignorance in us that makes us believe. It's like primal ignorance. It's not our fault. It's just a primal ignorance that we kind of come into this world with, thinking that we're separate from everything else and thinking that our happiness is coming from everything else. So naturally, if I think my happiness is in you, then I'm going to grab onto you for dear life. I'm going to grab on, because otherwise I'm not going to be happy, and I'm going to hold on and clench my fist, and I'm going to try to stay in control. I'm going to keep it. And if there's any chance that I'm going to lose it, I'm really going to freak out. I'm going to get scared, because then I don't have anything. Does this make sense? This is just one. Remember that when I'm talking about this, any subject, there's infinite fractals and ways to look at it. I'm just talking about one side of this huge thing. So this is just one perspective. So the clinging, and if you think about, there are so many different spiritual teachings and traditions that talk about this and talk about the importance of renouncing, our attachments and letting go, and this isn't to punish. Sometimes it's like people think that these teachings are like punitive in some way. We're not being invited to let go of our attachments because we need to suffer and we shouldn't enjoy life and we're being, it's not that. It's just that if you look into the nature of your experience with attachments, you may see that it's causing suffering. So if you don't want to suffer, we have to inquire into that. We have to look at that and see how our attachments may be causing us suffering, not with a judgmental eye or a shaming eye, oh, you shouldn't cling. You're bad if you cling. That doesn't help anything. If we look at ourselves and our path through a shaming eye, it's really difficult to open our heart and to actually really transform, because we're going to go into some kind of survival mode where we're just, beating ourselves up, which makes very little sense to do. Well, I've done it a lot, so I'm speaking from experience. I think I have a PhD in doing that. But I think, the teachings about non-attachment, whether it be the Buddhist tradition, the Hindu tradition, any of the spiritual traditions that talk about it in different ways, it's not because we're supposed to live our life with like nothing, just like floating in space, with no connection to anything. It's just that we need to look at our relationship with certain things and question and look at how we're ascribing our happiness to those things. Just to look as an observer and just notice it, not to beat ourselves up or to try to get angry, because we can't. How can we force ourselves to let go? You can't rip it, you can't force yourself to do something like that. These are things that we have to allow to happen with love. We have to create the right conditions for that to happen naturally. And in my experience, it's not really the way we may think it is. So non-attachment is, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, it's one of the most important teachings. That the path of karma yoga is talked about in there. And karma yoga is the path of offering all of our actions, letting go of the fruits of our actions, being able to do everything and then let go of the results. It's a lot harder said than done. There's a metaphor that I loved. I think Amma said it once. She said that a sage's mind is like a mirror. It sees something, then the thing goes away. It doesn't hold on to it. Whereas most of us, our mind is like a camera. We see something, we have an experience, and then we hold on to it. So sometimes when I'm around Amma and I watch her, Amma is my spiritual teacher from India, and she gives darshan in the form of an embrace to people. And what I watch, people go up, sometimes people are laughing and she's laughing. Sometimes people cry and she cries. And whatever is happening, it's like a mirror. But when that person leaves, there's no holding on to any, it's gone like a mirror, it's finished. Whereas if I was in that situation, if someone was crying, I would still be crying. I'd be feeling, I'd be a camera. My mind would keep that image. You know what I mean? So this is really, really interesting. Be around people who really are free in some way, that they don't have any attachment to what people think of them, to what happens. They have total equanimity, is really an amazing experience. I've had that experience with several different teachers and people that I've been around, that there's just a total sky-like nature to their being. Can feel they don't want or need anything from anybody, and you can feel it. There's no like little tendrils coming out saying, oh, I want this thing, give me this or what. There's nothing. It's just like space, there's just open space, and there's so much freedom in that. So obviously, learning to cultivate this is an art, and it's definitely something that I have really had to learn so much about, especially like doing whatever I do with my work. It's like, or my life in general, but just having to do it and then let go and not have any idea of what's supposed to happen, not concern myself with the results, just to do my duty and then let it go. That's like a constant practice. I remember many years ago when I first started singing, I had never sang in front of anybody before, and I didn't really want to. It was just something I did for myself, and I was too scared really to go out in public and do anything. And then one day somebody asked me if I would come to this big yoga retreat center. It's called the Kripalu Center. Some of you may know it. It's really large retreat center, and they had some kind of yoga training, and they asked me if I would come and sing for the people who were in the training after their day's program, if I would come in the evening. And I was so terrified. I didn't really want to do it because I hadn't really sang in front of anybody before. But I decided, okay, I'm just gonna be brave and just go and do this thing. And I went there, and this whole room was set up with this beautiful sound system. And I set up the room, and I sang, and I was waiting for the people to come. And I was waiting and waiting, and nobody ever came. Nobody came. And I just remember the experience of getting all ready to go to this thing. Whatever my expectations were, whatever I thought was going to happen, I just kept waiting, and time was going by, and there was nobody there. And I was sitting in this beautiful room and the sound system, feeling like such a fool, that there I was. And then I just remembered a story that Amma actually told, one of Amma's swamis told, about how Amma told him to go out into the village and give these dharma talks, these satsangs. And he went out and he was giving these satsangs like over this loudspeaker or something, but nobody came to listen. And afterwards he went back to Amma and he said, what's the point of doing this? There's nobody listening. And Amma said, no, but people are listening in their house. So don't judge. This is your duty. This is what you need to do. So just do it and don't be attached to, what happens. And I remembered that. And so I just tried to let go of my pride and my bruised ego around it and feeling like, oh, I'm totally on the wrong path, And I just sang. I just sat in the empty room and I sang for like a half an hour. And I let all my emotions come out in my singing, all of my confusion, like, what am I doing? Why am I even here? I shouldn't be doing this. This isn't the right path for me, and all of that stuff. And after that, doing the singing, I kind of left there feeling like, okay, like, it's all fine. This is just what I'm supposed to do. Who knows? Maybe I'll always just sing for nobody. And if I do, that's fine. I have to just let go completely. And it was such a great lesson for me. It really helped to unhook something. And after that, I really kind of felt like I'm just going to do what I'm going to do. And if people come, they come. If they don't come, they don't come. I don't want to try to spend all my energy trying to manipulate that and focusing on that. I just want to do the work of my heart. So it's a constant need to return to that, to let go the fruits of anything. I put a song out, whether or not likes it or not. There's millions of people in the world. Some people will like it, some people will not like it. I could spend all my time, and sometimes I spend too much time worrying about it. But now at this point, I've learned to just trust. If this feels true to me, I can just let it go and let it fly. And once it's out of my hands, it never belonged to me anyway. But these are things that I'm really, really learning about, because I found that, trying to be attached to the outcome of something can really create so much tension and so much stress inside. And it takes sometimes the joy out of what we're doing. We don't really know always or ever what's best. We have ideas in our mind of what's good, of what's bad, and we don't always know. We get too attached to that. We get too fixated on that. Then it's hard to actually be with what is, and when we're fighting with reality because we think we know how it should be, it's really exhausting. Fighting with reality is just profoundly exhausting. And I feel like it's so easy to do, because our mind, again, it clings, it has its ideas of what should happen, all of that. And so for me personally, these are just things I'm always learning about myself and watching in my own mind how I tend to want to do certain things, and I have to just try to let go over and over again. And one reason I really love the practice of chanting is because chanting is a practice of letting go. Through the repetition, we repeat the mantra over and over again. And we keep repeating it because we have to keep letting go over and over again, because it's not easy for the mind to let go. So the repetition is what we need to help drop it, to just drop it over and over again. Because the tendency of our mind is we drop it and then we pick it right back up again. That negative thought we have about ourselves. I can offer it, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, okay, I let it go. But the next minute before I know it, I've picked it back up again. So I have to keep doing it. The more you keep chanting, the more keep letting go and letting go. Eventually there's more space, there's more room, there's less of a desire to want to pick it up. And it's just interesting to think about and reflect on for all of us, the way that we invest so much outcome of thinking that we know what's best, what is supposed to happen. There's a story, a little like cute little parable about a yogi who pushed a huge heavy boulder up a mountain. And I'm sure it probably took a long time to get the thing up there. He probably had to work really hard. And when he got up there, he just threw it down the mountain. It was like laughing and jumping up and down like a child. That's the story. But I find it so funny because I'm thinking about myself. Like if I were to push a huge heavy boulder up a mountain, by the time I got up there, I would be so probably exhausted and so proud of myself. All of us probably want to like take a picture. I pushed this thing up the mountain, want to make a post. I pushed this boulder up a mountain. Look what I did. And if the boulder happened to fall down the mountain, probably we would be distraught after all of our hard work pushing it up there. And then all of a sudden it just went down to the bottom again. It's just, it's sort of humorous, but beings like saints or sages or yogis or people who are kind of free, who don't have those kinds of attachments, like they can rejoice in that. Milarepa, who was a famous Tibetan yogi, his teacher Marpa was constantly instructing him to build these towers. And every time he built a tower, Marpa told him he had to knock it down and start over again, which would, at least it would drive me completely out of my mind probably. And I feel like I've had that experience before, working on projects, like working on an album, like creating a song and then feeling like, oh, this isn't right. I have to take it down and start over again. And it's not usually a very pleasant experience, but there's something that happens in that process. When our mind kind of twists and knots like that, eventually there's like an opening that happens. There is a letting go that happens. I found for myself that, when you do a yoga twist, you're twisting your organs. So that when you release it, the fresh blood comes into your organs, right? And in the same way, when our mind gets twisted sometimes by the situations that we encounter in life, and that twisting is uncomfortable, but somehow that twisting, when we release it, it lets that fresh light in. It helps us to release our grip on things. So that's just a tiny little thing about, renouncing the fruits of our actions and looking at that and seeing how we get so much invested in how things should be and what they should look like. And we overlay our filtered scripts, onto reality. And then we suffer so much when it's not the way we want it to be or expect it to be. And this is a pretty profound, I'm talking about it a little bit lightly, but this can be a pretty profound thing, if we really think about it, because our lives tend to not generally go exactly the way that we think they're going to. And there is a lot of letting go required. But I think there can sometimes be a little bit of a shadow side to the idea of, detachment and all of that, because it can sometimes flip to like avoidance or something. Always we have to, I think, kind of watch things, because it's easy to just kind of go to that bypass type place where it's like, hey man, yeah, it's cool, whatever, I'm detached, it doesn't matter. That's not really true detachment. You can really feel like if a person is really free, first of all, they don't have to say, hey man, I'm detached. You can feel it just being around them. There's just a freedom, there's just a space. Whereas when we're kind of in a defense, of that avoidance or aversion of something, it has a different quality to it. I remember when I was young, I had this little situation thing with this drummer guy, and he would kind of roll into my life and then he would roll out. And every time I would try to like communicate with him, when he would roll out, he would just disappear, never hear from him again. And then he would come back in, and then he would go out again. I would him. And one time I was saying to him, it's not cool that you just kind of disappear and you just don't even respond to my messages. You just go away. Like, what's that about? And he said, hey man, I'm just a cloud. I'm like a cloud. I'm like space. I don't get sticky. If you're sticky, like that's your thing. And something like that. And I remember, I was pretty young at this time, but I remember just thinking, wow, maybe there's something up with me. Like I took that onto myself and thinking like, maybe I am too sticky. Maybe I'm not cloud-like enough. But later, as I reflected and I realized that he was kind of just avoiding dealing with like whatever our relationship was. It's so that was a really helpful insight, and it really helped me see, are there places within myself that I do that, where I'm kind of like trying to be above. I don't want to identify as like having attachment. So maybe I would just be in that place like, yeah, no, nothing bothers me. I'm fine with whatever. I'm detached. I'm cool with whatever. It's just an interesting thing to observe, because we can do that as a defense mechanism. And this person and I are now just our friends, and it's all fine. That was a long time ago, but it was a really interesting inquiry for me, learning a lot just about that within myself, and about how we can use these teachings sometimes in a way that is not helpful, and that makes us avoid dealing with life or treating each other with kindness and respect, which is really important. There's a reason why so many of the spiritual traditions have a bedrock and a foundation in morality and virtues. It's not like you're just detached and you don't care about anybody and it doesn't matter how you treat people. Of course that matters. That very much matters. That we are living these virtues and inculcating these values in our life. It's not that's like the foundation. So even if in the yoga tradition, the yamas and the niyamas, these are teachings that are guideposts for life. But I think another really important thing is that we tend to feel like we have to force detachment, and we can't force ourselves, like I said in the beginning, to let go of something. Amma says like an egg has to hatch from within. If you try to like hatch an egg from outside, you just kill it. It has to break open from inside. So we can't just force things and beat ourselves up about it if we're not able to let go of something. These things have their own time, they have their own wisdom. And I think, like I was saying in the beginning, like to create the right conditions for that is so, so important. And I think that love and compassion and understanding and that awareness, looking at our mind, understanding what's happening, is really, really essential. When a fruit is ripe on a tree, you don't even have to work to pull it off. You just barely touch it and it just comes off because it's ripe. If it's not ripe, you have to kind of work to pull it off. I remember when I was at Plum Village in the Upper Hamlet, they had these beautiful fig trees, and these figs were so amazing, and they were really ripe when I was there. And I ate a lot of figs, and just standing there under the tree, just when you could see like a ripe fig, like you just touch it barely, and it just comes right off the tree. And I think in so many ways, like letting go is so much like that if we just keep trying to yank something and force it to happen, we kind of hurt our heart in a way. We're all in a process. We're all going through a process. When you're letting go of something or someone or some part of ourself, it's not always going to happen exactly in the moment that we want to happen. Now, could it? Maybe. That's an interesting question. Can we just drop it? Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe sometimes we need to go through the process of working through that kind of burning experience of our clinging and of our attachment and let it, because it alchemizes something inside. I remember this period that I went through that I've talked about a little bit, where I was just feeling so much shame. Shame was like the most predominant feeling for me all the time. And that was when I wrote the song Say the Name that some of you know on the app. And I just, no matter what I did, I could not go of it. I tried everything, and it just followed me around everywhere. There was never any relief. And I just kept thinking, I have to let this go. Why can't I let this go? Why can't I see through this? Why can't I just pierce the veil of this feeling that I have? I couldn't. I literally did everything you could possibly imagine, and it just didn't budge at all. And then one day when I was feeling it so heavily, this song, I just kind of came out of nowhere. And I don't know how it happened, but it just broke something open that I wasn't able to do with all my willpower. And from that time, it started changing on its own. So how can I know that all of those years that I was burning up and struggling from that wasn't necessary to help me get to the place where something was able to just open up like that? We don't always understand the processes that we're going through. So I think it's important not to have that kind of self-judgment or to be punitive with our own heart. And also not to label attachment as good or bad. Some attachment can be a helpful attachment. Attachment in the Bhakti yoga tradition, our attachment to the divine or to God, whatever that means to you, is considered to be the attachment that breaks all of our other attachments. This is a really, really interesting perspective. Certain attachments can help to break off our other attachments that drag us down. So we can't just say all attachment is bad and we're supposed to live our life with no attachments at all. If the Buddha wasn't attached to the idea of becoming free, then he would never have set off on his journey and given us all that he's given us. It was because he had that seed, that desire in him, and that attachment to being liberated, that he followed his path. So doing that kind of binary thing in our mind, like, well, this is good, this is bad, it's not about does this cause me suffering? Why am I holding on so tight? What is that resistance that I'm feeling? Oftentimes when we cling on to something, we think that we're staying in control, but actually we're doing the opposite. It's in so many ways, when we let go is when we really take our power back. When we let go of our resistance is when things can actually come to us. The common idea, oh, when you're not looking for somebody is when you meet somebody. People will say, you could say, oh, I spent all this time, I'm gonna meet someone, I'm going on all these dates and doing all these things or whatever. And then you just give up and it's like, oh, forget it. And then you're just in yourself. And then all of a sudden that's when something happens, because when we let go, something comes to us. It's just like, my favorite way of thinking about it is, when you're talking to somebody and you forget what you're saying. It's like if I was doing this session, I was saying, oh, I wanted to tell you this thing. What was I just saying? And I'll say, oh, forget it, I'll remember it. Oh, just like that. As soon as I say, oh, forget it, and I've let go of my attachment to knowing what I was going to say, immediately I remember it. I'm sure you've had that experience. It happens all the time. And I love it when I'm talking to somebody and they're like, what was I saying? And I love it because I know as soon as they move on, immediately they're going to remember. Just watch that. When that happens, when you're talking to someone, it's so interesting. I get so excited when people forget what they're saying, because almost every single time, when myself or someone else forgets, as soon as you just say like, oh, I'll think of it, and you move on, then immediately you remember. So that is such a great teaching, I think, in terms of our own life. We hold on, we're grabbing, we think I'm going to just be in control of this thing, and as soon as we can just say, okay, I'm just going to let that go, then all of a sudden, boom, it's right there. And maybe it was there all along, but our feeling of need to be in control kind of creates resistance, So anyway, what I think is that letting go is trust. I think as I've been sitting with it for myself, I think on a very fundamental level, letting go is so deeply connected to trust. And it's very easy to have a knee-jerk reaction or a knee-jerk feeling. It's really hard for me to trust. How often do we say something like that? I have a hard time trusting. But actually, if you really think about it, our entire lives are based in trust. When you go to sleep at night, you trust that you're going to wake up in the morning. When you get on an airplane, you trust that the pilot knows how to fly. When you take a deep breath or any breath, you trust that your body's just naturally going to exhale. When you eat, you trust that you're going to digest the food. Essentially, every moment of our life is actually based in trust. It's just that we don't recognize that. We don't see how much trust is such an important thing in our life. And so because we have this feeling in our mind, I don't trust life or I don't trust myself, it's hard to let go. It's hard to let go if we don't trust that it's going to be okay, that I'm going to be okay, that life is going to be okay. And when we don't have a place within ourselves that feels like a kind place, a peaceful place, a refuge to come back to, then it can be even harder to have that trust, because we think, well, what are we trusting in? Some people might say, I trust in the divine, I trust in God. Someone else might say, I trust in Mother Nature. Well, it's different for everybody. But I think fundamentally, that trust is within ourselves, that I can't control what happens in life, But I trust that whatever happens, I know I'll be okay. I know I can always be there for myself. I know I will always be a refuge and have unconditional kindness towards myself, something that I want to cultivate because I know whatever happens, I can let go and come back to that place. And that is ultimately, I think, so much what spiritual practices is. That's what they're helping us to cultivate, is what Pai Thich Nhat Hanh calls the island of ourself, to come home to that. When we have that home, when we can trust that home, then we can let go much more easily. And I also think that when we experience our own happiness, when we can really fill ourselves up with something from within, then detachment actually happens naturally. Instead of having to try to force it, to change it, to make something be different than it is, we don't have to. We can actually just cultivate something within ourselves that feels really healing and really good. And then the other thing that we were attached to or ascribing our happiness to, it kind of just falls away, like that ripe fruit. I've had that experience so many times. There have been times when I'm really like trying so hard to like make certain attachments go away, or make, that feeling of shame, or make that feeling of loss that I'm just obsessing about, whatever it may be, how to make it go away. And when the energy is going towards how to make that go away, how it almost amplifies it. Whereas if the energy is going towards how do I take care of this being? How do I fill myself up? How do I connect with love? How do I connect with my original goodness? That automatically just creates that process of detachment. It's like a natural flow. We can take the path of subtraction, where we say, I'm just going to cut all these things off, or we can take the path of, adding, adding that fullness to ourselves, adding that joy to ourselves, which naturally makes something else fall away. If we think our happiness is coming from this thing, but then suddenly we feel happy within ourselves for no reason, that thing doesn't have as much power over us anymore. We are the ones power by saying we need this thing to be happy. And then when we go through hurt and difficulties in our life, if somebody hurts us, oftentimes we carry that around. There's so much we could talk about regarding forgiveness. But forgiveness is a huge letting go. And it's not for the other person, it's for us, so that we can let go, stop hauling that sack with those heavy rocks, let go of those rocks. So there's so many different ways to think about it. I really like the way Jack Kornfield describes it. He says to let go does not mean to get rid of. To let go means to let be. When we let be with compassion, things come and go on their own. I really, really like that a lot, because letting be has such a gentler quality to it. When we think of, at least for myself, when I think of the idea of letting go, I sometimes can get in this place like, why can't I let go? And you may even hear other people kind of, we shame one another with that. Just let go. Why can't you let go? You haven't let that go yet? That's not a very kind way to talk to ourselves or another person. It's not so simple. It's not so simple. There's so many causes and conditions, right, that keep us in whatever snarl that we're in, that is making us hold on to something, whether it be resentment, or whether it be, the pain of a loss that we experienced, or a loss of something within ourselves, or something inside of us that we want to let go of and we don't know how to, no matter how much we put forth effort. So I think that the process has to be honored, and it has to be held in kindness and love. And it's from that it naturally starts to change. When we understand our mind, we understand our heart, and we become more comfortable, like returning back to a place in ourselves. And then we can practice letting go a little bit every day, all the time, and become aware of how often we actually are letting go, and we actually are trusting life. Become aware of how much you trust, even when you don't think you do. You do. Every time you do anything, there's trust involved. When you get in your car, you trust you're going to get to your destination. You're trusting in something in yourself that makes you want to be here at this live session. I don't know what it is, but maybe you're trusting that there might be something here that could be of benefit for you. which I hope there is, but there's that little trust of some kind, you know? So when we start to see, like, okay, I do trust myself, I do trust life, that, in my experience, can really help. I know sometimes when I go to see my osteopath, whom I've mentioned before, he holds my head, he does adjustments on me. They're just very gentle. It's kind of like craniosacral. And sometimes I'll go in there and I'll feel all like twisted up and I'm in pain and I'm hurting, and I'll just start going off, this hurts or this thing. And he'll just say, trust. And he'll just touch my heart. He'll say, absolute trust. And when he says that to me, sometimes I have such a reaction. My feeling inside is just like, no, I'm not going to trust. I don't want to trust. And he'll just keep saying it to me. Absolute trust. Trust your innate intelligence of your body. Trust this present moment. Just trust and let your mind go for this moment. Just trust. And as I deepen into that, the truth of what he's saying, it really, really comes through, and I feel it, and I'm able to just quiet my mind and just feel that trust that actually is always there. I just cover it over with my thoughts. And many of us do that. We all do that. So I think when it comes to letting go, we have to trust that there's a process at work. There's a process. And sometimes what may appear like a long process of letting go, we can't make a judgment that that's good or bad. That may be what we have to go through. No, I mean, I've been through long periods of time where I've been struggling with something and I haven't been able to let go of. And then at some moment when I least expect it, like when I wrote that song, it ripens. So we have to trust that ripening, and trust that the intelligence that brought us here is helping us. And we're going through a process within ourselves around these things. And the clinging that we go through or that we feel isn't bad. And we're not wrong for it. It's the nature of our mind. And it's the nature of being a human being living in a world that tells us every day over and over again that our happiness comes from outside. Every day we get that message. So in order to undo that conditioning requires faith and trust and love and, understanding and inquiry, questioning. Is that true? So how can we expect thousands of years of the conditioning that we've had to just go like that? Sometimes it does, but sometimes we need to go through that burning, or whatever process we go through around it. I saw a Dharma talk a while ago by a teacher that I like. His name is Ajahn Brahm. He was a student of Ajahn Chah's, and he is in Australia. And he was saying that, look at the heaviness in your life, at the burdens you're carrying, and like imagine you're just taking a stick and you write on that stick my past, just throw it out. It's just great because it's so simple, but actually there's something profoundly beautiful about that too, that if we could just take it all, write it down, my past or whatever, just throw it in a river and just see if you can imagine that feeling of like, I'm completely free of this. Our attachments that we have, sometimes we think that they really make us happy, but we even get attached to our suffering. You may be connected to a person or a situation that causes you suffering, but that suffering sometimes feels more comfortable than letting go because there's a fear of what's going to come on the other side. There's a fear of the unknown. But there's so much freedom in that open space if we can relax into it. There's a Japanese poem. It's online. It's Barns Burn Down, and I can see the moon. It's by Masahide, is the author. Barn burnt down. Now I can see the moon. I love that. It's simple. It's the whole idea. The barn burned down and we could focus on the barn, and it sucks. The barn burned down. But actually now there's this open space and the moon's there. And I always think about that. And I have this image of just standing in this field. I don't know why I have a very vivid image of like a certain time of year. There's something about that poem. I imagine like the autumn and this barn burned and this open space in a field with the moon shining. And there's just like a feeling of freedom, I don't know, maybe I'm weird, but something about that poem is a very visceral experience for me. Barns burnt down. Now I can see the moon. So anyway, there's so much more that we could talk about this, but to me, I think the most important thing is the idea of letting be and realizing that letting go is actually not something that we can like punch and make happen like that. It's an allowing, it's a ripening, just like a fruit. it goes through its own process. Sometimes we can let go of things more easily and sometimes not. And I find that very simplest experiences in life are like weightlifting. They're like the training experience. Like if you're driving along and someone cuts you off, that's a perfect opportunity to practice letting go. Do you hold on to that? Do you try to speed up and find that person, or can you just drop it? And we can just keep learning over and over again in our life every day. There's so many opportunities to just drop it. When the dog has something in its mouth, you just say, drop it. We just can train ourselves to do that so that we don't hold on. We just create more room in ourselves, more space. But from a really like genuine place, like I don't need to hook onto that. I can just breathe and come back to myself. I don't know, something's going on, that person, they needed to speed by me. Maybe something difficult thing is happening in their life. They need to be somewhere. That's what I always tell myself. Because sometimes the reaction is like, hey, and then I think, no, you don't know what's going on. And I just move on. I don't even let it stay there. And it's a really good practice. Even just practicing letting go through an exhalation. And when you exhale, just imagine that you're just releasing everything, just releasing it back into space. No need to hold on to it. All of these things, being in the present moment, the Vipassana meditation, like even just simple breathing practice, shamatha, watching our breath, chanting, which we're going to do now. These are all ways that we are learning how to let go. And the reason that we have this like canon of spiritual literature and practices is because the great beings that left us these teachings understood that it's not easy for us. So we need these different things until we find a way to learn to let go of the things that we hold on to. And then little by little, at least in my experience, there is space that happens. Like that experience that I had with shame of just thinking my whole life, I'm going to be plagued with this feeling forever, of feeling like something is wrong with me or that I'm broken somehow. No matter what I do, I can't shift that. Years and years of feeling that. And then it just lifted. It doesn't mean I don't feel shame sometimes. I definitely do, but nothing like what that experience was. So I had to go through that. I had to go through whatever that was. And then there was more room on the other side. And I'm so glad I went through that because I can really understand that experience of feeling shame. It's a place that I'm not afraid to go because I've gone down there so many times. I know it really well. And I'm grateful for it. Anyway, I thought it would be nice for us to chant. I want to do 2 practices if we have the time. I talked a lot. I'm sorry. There's just so many things I wanted to share with you about this, and I barely even like scratched the surface. But I just wanted to chant really simple Ram mantra together because it's Ramanavami, which is the Ram. I love Ram, and but I wanted to do this chanting practice as a way of really using a mantra as a way to let go. I really had that experience, that every time we repeat, either listen to or sing the mantra, it's an opportunity to just let go over and over again. Whatever on your heart, whatever you're feeling, let it go into the mantra. I'm doing this because there's actually a practice called Archana that I do sometimes, which is chanting the names of the divine. So like 108 names of Devi. Some of you know that track of mine. Comes from a longer chant called the Lalita Sahasranama, which is 1,000 names of the Divine Mother. And when I chant it, I was always taught that you do this motion. You're offering flowers or something from your heart with each name you chant. Om Shri Matre Namaha, Om Shri Maharajni Namaha, Om Shri Matsimhasaneshwari Namaha. You chant, you offer from your heart. And the way I feel it is that everything that is like burdening my heart, that feels so heavy in my heart, with each name, I just offer that. I'm going to just let that go. And sometimes it's not a gentle thing. Sometimes it's like, take this thing off my heart, make it go. I got to let this thing go. So, there's these different ways that we can get into that mode of letting go. So we're going to chant this mantra just for a little while, the repetition, Shri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. You'll pick it up. It's very simple to chant. And even if you don't chant along, just see with each repetition if you can feel and have that sense that you're just letting something go. The need to know what's happening in your life, the need to be right, the need to have everything figured out, all the answers right now. Any of those things, we can just let that go just for this moment, not for all eternity, I think that's also part of the challenge, is that we tend to think, I have to let go forever. But it's like a moment by moment thing, the present moment. I'm going to just release that right now. Okay, maybe I'll pick it up again. But I'm going to experience that moment of just release, let go. With each mantra, we release, we allow, we let go, put our burdens down. Ramana Maharshi said, when you get on a train, why keep your luggage on your head? Put the luggage down. So let's put our luggage down, put all of our burdens down. So we're going to just chant this for a little bit, and then I'm going to guide us in a meditation on letting go of whatever we need to let go of in our life. Send that to the light. Here's my band and my phone. Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Jai, Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Jai, Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram, 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 Shri Ram Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Jai, Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Ram, Shri Ram Jai Jai Ram, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Rama. With each repetition, you hear the name Shri Ram Jai Ram. You just imagine that you're offering everything in your mind and your heart, and just let go. Just put it down. And I always feel that when we offer that dirt, the burdens in our heart, they come back to us as flowers. So you can sing along with me or just listen. Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Ram Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai Ram, Ram Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Ram Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Hare
Oh, fly, fly, beloved, fly. Oh, fly, fly, touch the sky. Oh, fly, fly, beloved, fly. Oh, fly, fly, touch the sky. Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Ram. Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai Rama, Shri Rama Jai 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 Jai Rama. Breathe in, hold, and just exhale and just let go. Just release through your whole body. To let go, just relax. Just relax. So we're going to do a little meditation now. And I'm going to invite you to let go. So we can, of course, stay in our head about the subject, or we can come into our heart about it. And really, I think it's important to acknowledge that letting go is not easy. Many things in our lives we hold on to. We try to understand, we want to change those things, we want to fix something that feels like it was broken. We want to do something, get revenge on someone that's hurt us. There's all of these things that we carry around. And really, by holding on to those things, we are stopping ourselves from being free. So we need to create a little bit of space to let that light in. Let that light come into ourselves, and know that it's by inviting in that light and that love and that compassion and kindness that is what all of the spiritual traditions are teaching us, that those are the medicines that help us to let go of our grip, to not hold on to the steering wheel so tightly, so that we can access the deep trust, the trust in the intelligence of life that brought us here, whatever that intelligence is that ripens the fruits on the trees, right? That rotates the earth, breathes our body. As we come back to ourselves and we cultivate that trust, it changes our perception of life and of reality and the things that happen. We begin to see the things that happen in life. We can use them to open our heart and love ourselves more. have more self-respect and less of a feeling of separation and isolation. So just take a moment to just come into yourself and see in your own life, what is it that you are working with? What are the burdens on your heart? What do you need to let go of? Is there something you didn't grieve that needed a loss that you just turned away from, didn't give it the love and attention that it needed? Is there a pattern within yourself that you want to shift and you don't know how? Do you have questions about things in your life? You want to be open to receive guidance about that, to let go of your idea of what's supposed to happen. Whatever it may be, we're going to sing this Kundalini mantra, which is called Akal. And this mantra is traditionally chanted for those who have passed on, that we send their soul to the light. And if there's anyone in your own life that you're grieving, that you've lost, this song can be sung for them. It means deathless, undying. And I think that every letting go is like a little death. And we have these opportunities in our lives to let go of these different things that have happened, whether it be a situation or a relationship or a part of ourselves. And instead of trying to just cut that off with coldness in our heart, we can send all of these things to the light. We can say, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you to my childhood home. Thank you to my dear friend Charlie. Thank you to my beloved friend Erica. Thank you to the patterns within me that no longer serve. All of these things for myself, I can just offer that and send that to the light and let go. So whatever it is for you, you can imagine that we're singing this mantra to that, to help loosen that grip, create more space for the light to pour in. Whatever it is that you are letting go of, you want to let offer into this space. So thank you. Thank you. I release you to free. I no longer let you burden me. Thank you. I release you. I set you free.
and feel that letting go, like you're writing on that stick, whatever it is you let go of, and you offer it into the river. Feel the heaviness falling away from your heart. No need to have everything figured out. Just create that space and let the light in. Let go, beloved soul. Let go, let go, beloved soul. Let go, let go, let go, let go, let go. It's okay to not know. Let go, let go. It's okay to not know. Let go, let go. Beloved soul of God. Let go, let go, Thank you. Thank you. I release you. I let go. Thank you. I set you free so I can be free. Feel that your heart is burdening, enlightened as you release whatever it is that you need to let go of. Let go, let go, let go with the soul. Let go, let go, beloved soul. Let go, let go, beloved soul. Let go. Let go. You could say that letting go is trust. Letting go is acceptance of what is. Allowing life to be as it is. Just feel in this moment a deep acceptance, just right here and now. Whatever that power or intelligence of life is that brought you here, that power that birthed all of us into existence and that takes us from these forms at the end of our lives, that power that we don't understand is with us through our whole life. It never abandons us. And our own heart also never abandons us. It's the home of that intelligence. As we come back to that place, we can let go of everything that wants to pull us from our home. Feel connected to our own joy and peace and contentment, and let that help us
to navigate our life with discernment, to know what to move towards and what to move away from. We can just simply let things be. So I'm just going to ring the bell 3 times. As you hear this bell, which is an invitation to be here in the present moment, just see if you can allow yourself to just be in this moment. Your body and mind, your heart, your whole being, just here. And know that being here in this moment is a letting go. It is a surrender, it is an acceptance, and it's an openness and a receptivity to life. We're going to end by chanting Loka Samasta 9 times, offering the goodness of our time together to the whole world. May all beings everywhere be peaceful and happy. Om Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. Lokaha Samastaha 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 Sukhino Bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Peace, peace, peace. Thank you. I shortened it a little just because I didn't want to go too far over. But thank you so much. I want to also just say that I think letting go is a process that has many different landscapes to it. And sometimes lots of tears are involved as we let go of our grip on life. But we can just let them flow like a river. That's what they're meant to do. Just keep letting go of our grip on the steering wheel. Just breathe, come back home. So thank you so much for being with me. The subject, like I said at the beginning, is just so vast and I could take so many different angles with it. I think if there was one essence that I would pull out of what I'm thinking about in my own life. And what I want to offer is just that we don't need to force ourselves to let go or berate ourselves when we can't, but just to understand that this is a process, that life is a big letting go. And all of the scriptures are pointing towards that, as I said at the beginning, in so many different ways. So, whatever frame works for you, acceptance, allowing, letting go, giving up, forgiving, opening up to a higher power, these are all different ways of thinking of letting go. So, may that power and energy be present in your life, help you feel more free all the time. And for me too, that's my prayer. So, thank you. I'm trying to think if there's any. Oh, I wanted to tell you about my workshop. I have a new workshop. It's called The Mystic Journey, which I'm really excited about. And after my last workshop was on the subtle body, and that was really, really so special and nice to be able to see everybody. And the reason I chose the Mystic Journey is because any of these teachings that I'm offering you, or that really anybody on the app or anywhere is offering you, these are teachings that have been revealed to us by the mystics of the world. You know, the mystics who love the mystery, and a mystic is one who wants to experience that mystery for themselves. You know, not just to hear about it or to read about it, but we want to have that experience. In that way, I think we're all mystics. And those of us who want to have an experience of deep love, of freedom, of truth, that thirst, that longing that propels us forward is that seed of like the mystic heart that is awakened in so many beings around the world. And they've left these jewels for us to show us these maps, you know, and it's a beautiful thing. I've spent so much of my life studying and learning about these different people because I just think that they're so interesting. And there's such an interesting thing that happens on this so-called mystic journey, which is just what I'm calling it, but really it's the journey of awakening to love and to come to know ourselves more and to experience our fullest potential of our birthright in this life, which is so much more than we can imagine. And in my experience, this journey doesn't always look like, well, what it looks like on social media, to put it lightly. It's not always romantic and pleasant. Sometimes we do go through these dark nights of the soul, like pretty much every saint has gone through. We go into these descents, these times when we don't know how to let go. We feel alone, or we feel like we're kind of shrouded in darkness and working with something within ourselves, or struggling with something in the external world. These periods are like the fertilizer, you know, that helps us. And if we can learn to see it through that lens, there's so much there. And for me, it's been really helpful in the times of my life that I've kind of descended these different periods to remember these stories and teachings from these beings and what they've gone through and how they triumphed. You know, it's similar to like Joseph Campbell's teachings on the hero or heroine's journey that we're all on. So the workshop is going to look at these different kind of stages on the mystic journey, look at the longing that we have, how to channel that longing. You know, what does that look like? How can we see our lives, you know, in the similar way and work with the things that happen in our lives, inspired by these teachers. And we'll do different practices and different things. I like to weave the teachings together with the practices, but I hope it will be something really practical and also really inspiring to be able to come together and go deeper with all of this material. All credit for anything in any of these sessions that I've led does not go to me, not 1 ounce of it. It all goes to the beings who revealed these things, who had those awakenings in themselves. I have like the most profound gratitude to them. And the fact that those teachings have endured through all of this time says so much. You know, these are the teachings that are the truest thing that we all know. And actually, we're not even learning anything when we read them or hear them or learn them. We're remembering. We're remembering what we already know. So I feel like everything is a path of remembrance. And on the Bhakti tradition, which the Bhakti is the yoga of love, there's 9, typically it's said that there are 9 forms of Bhakti in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of the forms of Bhakti is Shravana, which is hearing, to hear stories, to hear the teaching, that it turns us on, our heart. It says, come alive, you know, that it waters the seeds within us.
And especially when we get in community, it's that food that we need, to help us keep moving forward in a world that doesn't necessarily see life through a sacred lens. We can't really look to the kind of flat world for that. We have to look to one another and look to these different resources that we have to remember that sacredness, to remember. It's so important. And I think that as we do, we transform our life, really. We transform the way that we see ourselves and the way that we see reality. We realize that what we thought was reality was just a different pair of glasses that we had on. So we can put different ones on. Anyway, thank you, Zawadi. And I loved your session yesterday. Anyway, I'm so grateful to all of you. And thank you so much also for your donations. It really is helpful. And the workshop is $50. And I wish I could do everything for free, but everything else on here is free. And I need to be able to support myself at least a little bit to keep making music and doing these programs. So that's why there is a fee for it. And it's 3 hours. And like the last time, I stayed for an extra hour to answer questions and just be together. And I will do that for the next one too. I really believe that taking time and having time is like the slow food movement, the slow spirituality, to be together, is what it's about, to be together and just be with one another and not just feel like, all right, I got that workshop done. That's not how I want to approach it. Cause this is like sacred work, so we need that time and love and attention. So anyway, you can find the workshop on the app, and I'll set up another live session sometime soon once I figure out what the right theme is. So much love to you all. Thank you, Michelle. I'm so glad that you were there for that. I think I shared a couple of quotes, and I'll put them in my circle in the next day or two, the ones that I read, and there may be some notes about what I shared about today. And I just want to thank you again for just showing up every time, so many of you, to these sessions with your open hearts and your mind. And I can't tell you how much it means to me. It's really, really meaningful to me to be able to share what is in my heart with you. And the only wish I have is that, we could all be together and learn from one another, like in real time. It's like, I'm just here and I know you're there, but it's like, I want to hear from you, because everybody here has so much wisdom and so much life experience to offer. And so thank you for hearing mine. And I was actually thinking about doing Letting Go as a workshop, actually just today, because there's so many practices, actually specific practices that are really helpful for letting go, whether it be like a shaking practice or different types of meditation that it's hard to do in a live session. That's the only thing, about the live sessions, because people can kind of drop in at any moment. So I sometimes hesitate to do like really intense practices, because somebody might come in like the middle and be like, what's going on here? And then, it create a container. So thank you for suggesting that. I think at some point I will do that for sure, because I think it's a really important subject. So anyway, all right. So much love and gratitude to you. Thank you so much. And I'll see you when I see you. Be kind to yourself. And I'm sorry I missed so many of your comments along the way. It's like, if I don't stay focused, then I feel like I'm gonna lose my thread. Okay. Oh, and some of that J. Ram song, I sang just a tiny bit of the Ram part from Touch the Sky, which I think some of you know. It's a little too slow without having a real drummer, but give a little taste of that one. All right, see you later. I will do it again, I promise. Thank you.